Welcome, and thank you for joining me to learn about language matters. My name is Lillian Stevens. I'm a Spanish, English, bilingual teacher, educator, and researcher, and I'm also the founder of Language Matters, LLC. Today, we'll be talking about language, a lot. Specifically, why language matters for the American teaching force. We'll be talking about 4 strands of language understandings, as well as how working with language matters can bridge language and literacy work into your classroom. At Language Matters, we know teachers believe in their students' potential and creativity. They use their knowledge of students and classroom experience to make informed instructional choices. But what if you're a teacher whose training and life experiences haven't sufficiently prepared you to work with language learners? Supporting language learners, or LLs, presents particular challenges, specifically related to a teacher's knowledge about language. So, we help teachers see how language study can become a central part of their curriculum and their teaching practice. Let's talk about language together. What is the educational climate in which language learners attend schools in the United States? Research suggests there are 4 barriers to a language learner's academic achievement. First, language learners make up the new mainstream student. This means that for states who have always had a sizable population of language learner, say New York and California, there are twice as many states seeing a rise in this population of student. Teachers in these states report feeling overwhelmed and under-supported to meet their needs. Second, the American teaching force has always skewed heavily as white and female. Recent reports suggest that 8 out of 10 teachers represent this demographic, and this has implications for the growing number of LLs, especially in those new growth states I mentioned, where teachers' training and background don't sufficiently prepare them for the unique learning needs of a language learner. And this brings us to the next point. Deficit attitudes towards these students remain an entrenched part of the American teaching force. Even well-meaning teachers can come across as having lower expectations of students when they don't speak the language. We're going to watch a brief video that shows an extreme example of these deficit attitudes.
Not saying you right to speak Spanish, but saying you right to speak American.
Cliffside Park high school student is seen getting up and leaving the classroom on Thursday after a teacher told the class soldiers are fighting for them to speak, quote, American. Today, about a dozen students walked out during the second period to protest.
School is supposed to be a safe environment for children to learn. It's not supposed to be a place where you feel attacked.
Herbert's right. School is not a place where you're supposed to feel attacked. And finally, in a post-COVID world, the achievement gap is poised to widen between well-resourced families and our most at-risk communities. Now, more than ever, we need to marshal resources and streamline our support for bilingual speakers. Simply put, language matters because language learners matter. My research considers what teachers need to know about language to help their LLs. Turns out, they need to know lots of things. The first is about how students acquire a new language. And at Language Matters, we use the staircase icon for new language acquisition, where the goal is for students to gain confidence in English by gaining proficiency in the target language. But I must be clear. Our mission is to develop the full capacity of a learner's bilingualism. For my bilingual teachers, any work you do with Language Matters, we will infuse biliteracy understandings into your professional goals. And the next strand is academic language understandings, represented by the tuxedo icon. Perhaps you've heard of text complexity or language demands in your conversations around the next generation standards. Having a working understanding of linguistics will help you make sense of what makes a text complex and how to address the language demands in your classroom. Sociolinguistics is the third strand of teacher language knowledge. It considers how language use occurs in real-life contexts. and includes an appreciation of language variety. Sociolinguistic principles matter because teachers aren't trained to see language variety and linguistic pluralism as a normal human phenomenon. At Language Matters, we aim to affirm versus assail students that sound like street talk or who use bad grammar. We'll talk about that in a minute. Which brings us to our fourth very important strand, critical language awareness. Our language ideologies, or the beliefs and attitudes that we carry towards language learners, is mixed up in the way power and privilege are tied to the English language. This strand helps teachers explore how language encodes power through the promotion of a social justice pedagogy. And throughout this webinar, we'll hear from teachers and administrators who've participated in the Language Matters workshops and trainings. We'll see how their initial perspectives on supporting LLs changes when they begin to see language work as a central part of their teaching and practice. As you follow along, ask yourself if you identify with the teachers and what areas of professional support you may need around language teaching. Monica and Susan were chatting at the end of September. Monica says, "Ugh, I feel so frustrated. My newcomers sit there, blank stare. I know nothing is processing." To which Susan adds, "I know. Plus, I try to talk to the ESL teacher to learn differentiation strategies, but she's so effing busy." After Monica participated in the New Language Acquisition series, she had this to say. "Well, we did a deep dive into language proficiency levels, and I began to see language instruction as more than vocabulary previews. The NLA series gave me the confidence to put language scaffolds into my practice. Now I'm not as worried about whether I'm supporting these students. I know I am." So the NLA package will include coaching, language proficiency trainings like Monica had mentioned, a language standards deep dive where we'll really explore what they mean and how they apply to your practice, and then work with language objectives to enhance your already successful lesson plan specifically to target the needs of language learners. Nina is learning about text complexity, and she sighs. "My kids will never grasp this figurative language and nominalization stuff. I blame texting and Twitter and Facebook. It was so much easier when we were kids and writing was only done at school." How many times we've heard, or perhaps even said, what Nina does about the youth today and their texting language. Well, after working with Juicy Sentences and the language demands of her curriculum, Nina admits, "I get it. Having a working understanding of language forms can help me see the linguistic challenges of reading a grade level text. And after the academic language series, my students and I geek out over finding nominalizations and metaphors in the books we read. It's this whole new way to work with literacy." Language Matters offers a specialized series on academic language knowledge, where teachers will develop a fluency in meta-language through sustained and supported analysis of complex texts. You'll develop a working understanding of the features of academic language. This knowledge will help you determine the language demands of your curriculum. It includes one-on-one coaching and professional support, so your teachers know how they're doing every step of the way. And again, any service that we offer at Language Matters can be provided for Spanish dual language classroom contexts up to 8th grade. Elena is leading a small group of LLs in a book chat. And although she models academic language, her students don't seem to pick up on it, and this frustrates her. "If I let them use their street talk, they'll never learn the standard. Isn't that what school's supposed to teach them?" Elena's comments are consistent with research that consistently points to teachers' attitudes and misunderstandings about language use among Black and Brown students. But after her sustained work with the sociolinguistics package, she realized how deficit narratives have infused her thinking about language learners, much to her surprise. "I'm a Latina, and I thought I held high expectations of my students, but I didn't realize I was policing how they spoke. Lillian helped me design a home language research project where all my students became these language ethnographers." It's one of the coolest units I've ever planned, and my students were so engaged. The sociolinguistics package includes workshops on language ideology, where you'll do a language portrait where you find where in your body your language lives and exists. Work on language varieties that will help us conduct contrastive analysis so that we can compare the differences in grammar and form and structure between our language use. Susan teaches sixth grade bilingual students, and she's been learning about culturally responsive pedagogies. She tries to bring social justice practices into her classroom, but she feels stuck. I understand why issues of power and language are important, but I'm just trying to get them to pass the test. Well, Susan partnered with Language Matters for 3 months, where she examined how authorial points of view and position people of color and immigrants in particular ways. And now she sees how power contorts the stories told as truth in US schools and curricula. Why didn't I know this before? Why hadn't my coursework asked me to interrogate texts like this? Now that I see power in all the ways it manifests, I can't unsee it. I want my students to author their own stories, because if not now, when? Well, workshops for the Critical Language Awareness Package include the 3 principles of CLA: building an awareness, applying a critical lens to the text that we read, and then action, which aligns with this idea of participatory action research that we will do with the teachers. Well, we've heard about all the strands of language knowledge. Let's listen to a principal and a teacher.
She creates opportunity to reinforce my identity and bilingualism through Where I Am From poem, bilingual language poetry, and linguistic autobiography. I felt welcome in her class, and my experience was appreciated.
I am a principal to a dual language elementary school, and Lily has helped us in our design of our dual language immersion model, and she's helped our teachers take the theory behind biliteracy and think about instructional strategies and practices that can happen in the classroom to support the research behind biliteracy. She's taken theory and she's made it applicable and practical in our classrooms. We're so extremely appreciative of all of the help Dr. Lily Stevens has given us. Thank you, Lily.
I invite you to visit the website, languagematters.org, to reach out to me at lillianstevens@languagematters.org. And I really look forward to working with you and your colleagues this upcoming school year. Thank you.